We're in League One for a weekend recap, but what that means is we're also sort of in the FA Cup, where there was some League One involvement and some quite spicy League One involvement. 2 seriously good cup ties involving Leyton Orient, who went down 2-1 to Man City, and Birmingham, who went down 3-2 to Newcastle. But both teams, George, having one moment in particular each that will live forever in the memories of their fans. Iconic cup goals scored by, well, Ortega OG, brackets, Jamie Donnelly, and Iwata of Birmingham.
Yeah, 2 incredible goals. And I haven't made many noises like the one I made when Jamie Donnelly hit one from absolutely miles out. It was an incredible strike, the audacity to do it in that kind of occasion. And yes, whilst it hit the crossbar and ricocheted and went off Ortega's backside, it may not go down as his goal, but it'll always be remembered as Jamie Donnelly's goal in the moment where he really burst onto the scene. He's had a brilliant couple of months at Orient and was a standout player here in just a brilliant performance where they were, again, so good. They were deserving of their lead. They took the game to City. It wasn't a case of just sitting really deep and soaking. They carried a massive threat on the counter-attack. Jack Curry at left-back was absolutely fantastic. Donnelly, from both an attacking and defensive standpoint, is brilliant. They were so good on the day. And frustration, I think.
Can tell how EFL coded I am, that my notes from watching the highlights are spammy goal for 1-1. The deflected Rico Lewis goal. This made me genuinely angry. If you're Man City, you shouldn't be allowed deflections.
Although the second goal, we should say the winner was absolute quality. Jack Grealish was City's best player by an absolute mile on the day. It was a constant threat for Orient, and it was his just sumptuous ball for De Bruyne's incredible run, and then an amazing, just a very smart De Bruyne finish. Finding it to be really critical. I think maybe the Orient keeper should have come off his line a little bit quicker to close down the space and stop De Bruyne from having what was a relatively routine finish when he got there. And Pratley came incredibly close to making it 2-2 and taking the game to extra time. But Orient can feel very, very proud of themselves. Maybe there's an argument to be had that given where they find themselves in the league, a valiant defeat at this stage of the FA Cup isn't the worst thing. They can concentrate on continuing, because on that form, I mean, they are right bang at it right now in League One. And the best team in League One, Birmingham City, hosting Newcastle. The Iwata goal to make it 2-2 was just an incredible strike, really. Phenomenal power and the way that he hit it, the bouncing ball into the top right-hand corner, lit up this game. And it was a really good end-to-end clash. Ethan Laird putting Birmingham ahead from a corner within a minute. Newcastle backing their way back into the game. Peacock Farrell looked like he made a brilliant save from Willock, but the ball was adjudged to have gone over the line. Callum Wilson with a scrappy goal to make it 2-1 before Iwata got them back in it, and Willock won it relatively late on. But again, Birmingham can feel incredibly proud of the performance that they put in, again on the biggest stage, going toe-to-toe against a team, one of the better teams in the Premier League, and they gave a really good account of themselves. So in a weird way, I think them going ahead within a minute probably tore up the game plan a little bit, because we're so used to them being so solid defensively and being very, very capable of kind of getting games to be played at their own pace and tempo. But it's hard to do that against a Premier League side when you're 1-0 up as early as they were.
I have done someone a huge disservice here. So much so, I might actually have to write a formal apology letter, like when you got beaten 5-0 on FIFA back when you were at university. Johnny Smith of Wigan. Does anyone have Johnny Smith's address? Because I need it. I've just gave it big guns in the lead up to that question about League One teams playing Premier League teams and scoring iconic FA Cup goals that made their fans go wild. And I should have mentioned Johnny Smith, because his equaliser for Wigan against Fulham was an absolute worldie. Maybe one of the reasons why I didn't go for it as part of a trio is because of his own success over the years at scoring that exact goal. I feel like I've seen Johnny Smith score that so many times that it's just feels routine for him. He's so good at that exact Arjen Robben-esque strike. It was brilliant. It really, got the crowd going. Maybe one of their best moments this season at home, where I often feel things are a bit flat. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to any glory. It was a lot of Premier League quality at show for the winner. The pass from Andreas Pereira, the run from Muniz and the finish as well, and Fulham leaving Wigan with a 2-1 win and cup progression. Preston played Wycombe, and Wycombe took them all the way, 0-0 after 90, after extras. Preston winning on pen, so Wycombe go out as well as Birmingham City, the top two. And on Tuesday night, we've got Exeter against Nottingham Forest. It'd be, for any League One club or League Two club, these cup competitions are important for a ton of reasons, one of them being financial. For Exeter City, there's always that part of me that hopes for some financial cup glory and cup success for them, a little more than some other clubs, because you know how important every single penny is to a fan-owned club, because they are so open about what they do with what they would call football fortune, i.e. money or revenue made from cup successes and player sales, a portion to the academy, which fuels their first team, a portion to the infrastructure, which helps them have good facilities, and a portion to the playing budget as well. So go well on Tuesday night, Exeter against Nottingham Forest. But in league football, a couple of teams continuing their good runs of form, George, and really making strong designs on promotion, whether it be through the playoffs or, in the case of Stockport, it seems very silly to limit them to that, such as their form and their performance level at the moment. 5 wins in a row, could have been 4 clean sheets in a row, but a late Davis Keillor-Dunn goal for Barnsley meant they had to settle for just the 2-1 win, Stockport.
Only 6 points off second in Wycombe at the moment too. An incredible form. It's interesting, there were 2 probably headline departures, players leaving. I mean, there were lots of key players leaving clubs in the January transfer window, but it felt like Louis Barry leaving Stockport and Nathan Lowe leaving Walsall were kind of the 2 headline ones. One team has coped incredibly badly with the loss of one of those players, and one club has coped incredibly well. And it's hard not to think that Stockport look to be maybe a more well-rounded attack, like a side that are less reliant on one incredible player in order for their attacking produce as they were under Barry. They are bang at it right now. Olawafe with the first goal, Collar with the penalty to make it 2-0. Totally deserved lead at half-time. Credit to Barnsley, who came out second half, completely different team, having not really turned up in the first half. They had a few opportunities before Keillor-Dunn scored a late consolation goal to make it 2-1, and they created more in that second half against Stockport. They were used to seeing teams with Stockport so strong at home, but with Huddersfield struggling at the moment, with Wycombe having some turmoil off the pitch, with Wrexham dropping off a bit, as you say, there's no reason at all why Stockport can't be the team that chase down, or can be the nearest to Birmingham at least when the season ends. They are right at it at the moment, and their performance levels, the manner of their wins is all very, very promising.
Yeah, Charlton are bang at it as well. They beat Stevenage 2-0, 7 wins in their last 10 league games now, and into the top 6. They did have an early scare, a Stevenage 1-on-1. I think it was at Pere who just couldn't quite take it round, or couldn't quite sort his feet out and finish the chance, and made to pay. It was a nice move for the first goal. It was finished off by Godden, and the second goal just kind of made me laugh more than anything. Ball forward, flick on from Godden, Tyrese Campbell playing off him, shooting off the bar, and it was quite a spectacular strike off the bar. The whole of the Valley still had their head in their hands, and it just landed at the feet of Luke Berry, who just nonchalantly slid in the rebound with the keeper already on the floor, having dived for Campbell's shot. So 2-0 to Stevenage. No, 2-0 to Charlton. Wow.
Charlton, I think you're in non-league.
Cardiff, Charlton, who knows? A bit of Tyrese Campbell love from me. I think any Charlton fans listening to the pod know that at my heart I'm a Miles Lieburn ultra. But, as Rio Ferdinand said about Messi and Ronaldo, just enjoy him, man. Just enjoy him. People want to compare. There's no need to compare these two players. They're both playing up front for Charlton. Lieburn obviously not starting here, but I find Campbell a really fascinating player, almost from a tactical point of view and a player profile point of view. He's a team sheet striker, to coin a new expression, or to adopt an expression that I've used for other parts of the pitch. He is playing, if you were to write Charlton's team out, I would say as up front with Godden in a 3-5-2. But the way that Charlton are playing and have done for the last month or so makes it very difficult to write this team out on the team sheet, because Thierry Small, who's always been a fullback or a wing-back, is in possession, charging up the pitch and taking up a role very clearly as a right winger, with Kane Ramsey moving across to right back. But out of possession, when they're defending in their defensive third, they are in a back five, of which Small is the right-sided wing-back, the right full-back, if you like. So it's a difficult one. What it means for Campbell is out of possession, he's kind of central and trying to press in central areas and use his speed and his agility and his incredible energy and durability to disrupt opposition build-up. But then out of possession, because I think he is at his core a wide player, a winger, he tends to drift into pockets right out on the touchline, receive the ball in the half spaces, but he has license to run onto flick-ons from Godden, as he did for the second goal, to drop deep and receive the ball to feet if necessary. He is undergoing a really interesting season for him, development-wise, I would suggest, having to learn some different traits and some different behaviours on the pitch, rather than just constantly being an out-and-out winger who just gets the ball and dribbles. He's pretty good at that, but I do wonder if this might be developing his all-round game into a more well-rounded player. What I find really interesting is I know that there was some championship bids for Tyrese Campbell in January, and it surprised me a little bit to hear that the bids were maybe for Campbell rather than for Leyton, who, I see just in terms of the profile, if he stays fit and keeps developing, it clearly is someone who looks a bit like the Premier League strikers that thrive these days. But I was also surprised because the numbers don't stand out massively for Campbell. He's only scored 2 goals and got 1 assist this season, so the top-line output is not great. I do think the numbers are impacted by the role that he has, where he plays most of his minutes as a striker. So most data platforms, when you're doing a search for strikers in League One, will be comparing Tyrese Campbell against other League One strikers. But as discussed, he's not really playing that kind of role, and he doesn't really stand out on strikery metrics, certainly not like goal threat stuff. But I think he's a big eye test guy. Right? An old school scout would love Tyrese Campbell. He's someone with tremendous energy, ability to make great runs off the ball, like those unselfish runs off the ball that I talked about last week with Dan James. Running in behind, coming short, drifting wide, just a really tough player to get a grip on as a defence. And I think developing a lot on the ball without necessarily the sort of hardcore numbers to back it up. So someone for you guys to keep an eye out, Tyrese Campbell. As I say, I mostly bring up Miles Leyton when he scores because I think he could have a bright future in the game. But clearly, Tyrese Campbell is likely to be playing at a higher level than League One over the next few years, and he's only a couple of months older than Leyton. So really exciting, more quality out of Charlton's academy, and more commitment from the club to play these young players and give them significant game time at a young age. And they're in the top 6. They beat Stevenage. George, you spoke to Alex Ravel on How Do You Manage episode 3. It's available on the pod feed and the YouTube feed. Some great feedback. I watched this one while feeding myself a cold beer and looking out at the mountains/hills of Stellenbosch in South Africa. You could say I was reveling in it. What did you make of the great man?
Did you listen or watch?
I started watching and then moved to listening.
Oh.
Because I wanted to just look at the scenery. I couldn't be asked to look at the screen.
Blinded by Revs's white teeth.
Mate, you go to South Africa, you shouldn't be looking at a screen.
It's. I thought he was brilliant. I thought he was really open and honest, a very clear communicator, someone... It was very obvious to me how much he seems to value respect, I would say, both in terms of respecting Stevenage and the fan base and the club, respecting Steve Evans, someone who he's obviously holds in the highest esteem as both his former manager and also his boss at Stevenage previously, who's happy to admit that he wasn't ready in his first period at the club. I think too many managers, or often managers, are unwilling to admit that they're wrong or not ready or anything else. And there was no airs or graces about him at all in that regard. And I thought it was telling how when I asked him about his goal at Wembley, his reaction was to say what a big moment it was for his family and friends. Like, again, it just rings of a guy who isn't overly self-centered and can see the bigger picture. And that can only lend itself well to the job that he's doing. He's doing an unbelievable job at Stevenage. It was a great time to speak to him off the back of those league wins. We spoke a little bit about challenging for a playoff spot. Saturday's result is probably a pretty big blow in that regard. And it would be no shock if they do end up kind of mid-table. But certainly in terms of what he's built this season, in what was a very difficult transition season, has been a very difficult transition season, he's made it look relatively easy. And, in what is still the infancy of his managerial career, there's loads of promise there. I really enjoyed chatting to him.
Now, maybe the balmiest game of the whole EFL weekend was Bolton 4, Crawley 3. At the very top line is that this was the first home game and then a first home win for Steven Schumacher. How it all transpired, George, was so dramatic that you're going to do something genuinely unprecedented on this podcast, and you're going to hit that big green FOTMOB corner button to break down a match.
Yeah, I mean, I often do this where, we can't be watching every single game on a Saturday. So quite often I will, at the end of the days before I watch the game is back and the highlights that I want to watch, I will go through FOTMOB and I'll click on all the games, and I think it can tell you quite a lot about those games before you actually watch them back. In Bolton and Crawley, the first thing to say is that there was no sign whatsoever what was going to come at half-time. Bolton and Crawley fans must have gone and got their pie and their pint at half-time, thinking they'd gone to an absolute snooze fest. 0-0 at half-time, just the 9 shots in the game, 1 on target each, 1 big chance that came Crawley's way, very little to report, very little of note whatsoever. Then, after they came out from half-time, it all kicked off. Now, Crawley started the second half on the front foot. Russian Hepburn Murphy had an opportunity. Panuccio Karma went close twice before Hepburn Murphy scored the first goal with a great finish into the top right-hand corner. Then, as is often the case in games like this, it unravelled very, very quickly. Osei Tutu scored a nice finish for Bolton up the other end with the very next shot of the game. And then Swan capitalised on some really poor Bolton defending to make it 2-1 on the 54th minute. So, 3 goals in 4 minutes, and suddenly the game is turned on its head somewhat. Hepburn Murphy scored a second goal with a nice counter-attack to make it 3-1 just after the hour mark. And then I would say the moment that the game turned on, where a free kick is given against Crawley, and they try and take it quickly, but way closer to the goal than was the infringement took place. The referee stops them from doing so. So this is where it gets kind of weird. It stops them from doing so and marks where he wants the ball to be. They basically place the ball down where he wants it to be and play the free kick incredibly quickly. I don't really remember ever seeing this before. Normally quick free kicks are taken very quickly after the infringement. It's rare that you see the referee say, no, come over here. The Crawley defenders are all basically asleep, and then they take it very quickly. And I'm undecided whether or not I like the fact that was able to happen or not. It feels like maybe after there's been a period of time after the infringement, normally then it's up to the referee to blow a whistle and say, you can now take your free kick. If there's been like a 5 or 6 second delay between the moment of... So I would lean on the side of saying it shouldn't have taken place. But either way, Alex Murphy is set through. Crawley defenders have no real idea what's going on, and he finishes. Credit here should go to Rory Feely, who tries the John Terry header sliding tackle from incredibly far out. Like, he starts it, he has to basically like push himself up and do it again because he goes so early with that. Doesn't get there in time. It's not the last we'll hear from Feely, because the red card came just after Josh Sheehan had made the game 3-3. Kalade Lolos up against his former side with a shot that is deflected into Sheehan's path. Sheehan was injured in the process. And then Feely with just a really stupid tackle in the corner, just his second appearance for his new club Crawley, having signed from Barrow, who was sent marching after 89 minutes. Maybe frustration that he wasn't able to pull off that header sliding tackle from previous. Now, what you can see here again is that even though this was now 3-3, 10v11, and you anticipate that Bolton had all the chances, Tola Shomi had 2 opportunities at 3-3 before the winning goal came to get all 3 points for Crawley in what was 12 added minutes before Charlie Baker diverted it to his own net, deflecting a shot that kind of spooned up in the air and went into the back of the net. You can see here on FOTMOB the second half, not actually that different, as is often the case. It's always finishing that changes things. 19 shots, 7 on target, so 4-3 shots on target. 4-3 was the resulting the actual score from the second half itself. But maybe you can see here in terms of passes the difference between Bolton's performance in the first half and the second half, where in the first half they attempted 246 passes, in the second half they attempted 288 passes. The big difference being the passes in the final third, just 40 in the first half, 106 in the second half, touches in the box 13 in the first half, 25 in the second half. So it wasn't the case where they had more of the ball or came into the game, or it was just where they had it, able to process the ball into that final third more often and more regularly. A few players to pick out. Josh Sheehan, as ever, the the metronome in the middle of the park. 66 accurate passes from 77 attempted, and 4 chances created, and a goal scored 2. Jordi Osei-Tutu, you can see from a shot map there, 5 shots he had, all from that left-hand channel, scoring one of them. A consistent attacking threat down the left-hand side, 9 touches in the opposition box. All in all, it was a pretty good performance from Bolton. The first one for Steven Schumacher. Crawley will feel frustrated they weren't able to get anything, having been 3-1 up, although I think they would have probably every right to feel a little bit aggrieved that the ball wasn't taken back to that spot, and the quick free kick on which the game turned wasn't retaken.
It was a lovely reminder that Crawley are perhaps the most deeply unserious team in the EFL, off and indeed on the pitch. I'm very glad they exist as they do on the pitch. They remind me a bit of an exhibition team. One thing that really rattled me looking at the league table on FOTMOB after this is that I think of Crawley as so much better going forward than the other teams down at the bottom of League One, but actually they've scored the same amount of goals as 2 of the other 3 teams in the relegation zone, and 1 less than the other team. So that's a little bit of a confusing one. But we've had Bolton fans messaging being like, that Crawley team looked brilliant. Hepburn Murphy looking explosive and fantastic finisher. So it was also a good reminder of what you can get from FOTMOB, just to add even more colour and excitement and analysis onto whether you watch the full game or the highlights. And that's why we love FOTMOB. It's our favourite football scores app, but it offers so much more in terms of both match-specific stuff and so many other stats as well. So if you want to download FOTMOB today, do so using the link in our description. There were some big results, big wins down at the bottom of the league. Once again, this League One relegation battle that looked dead in the water a couple of months ago is now full of piranhas. One of the teams involved, Shrewsbury Town, they beat Rotherham 2-1. But Northampton, who are the hunted, also getting a big win. On Friday night, they beat Mansfield by 1-0. Let me tell you about Shrewsbury's win at Rotherham. 2-1 it was. And the first goal was like something out of Crawley Bolton. Just absolute carnage. At one end of the pitch, a huge handball shout. The Rotherham fans screaming for it. I can't really tell what happens from the camera coverage that we have, but there is that part of me that just thinks the level of desire in the appeals to the referee normally says something. And it really was a big one. Then you've got a ball from Shrews down the channel. Dolphins just trying to buy a foul off of Marquis, and the referee doesn't buy what he's selling. Marquis runs clear, 1-on-1, has his shot saved, and Perry, the midfielder of Shrewsbury, following it in, has the ball basically cleared off his knee and flies into the top corner. It didn't make any sense on any level, but Shrewsbury were ahead. Blackman made a brilliant save in goal for them. He's been, you have to say, a good addition to the team since being brought in a couple of months ago. But they were breached. It was a Hakeem Odoffin header. It was 1-1 to Rotherham. And you'd think that home team, who are strong favourites, would go on to win. But you'd be wrong, because Perry, again involved with a really good channel run. He got the ball across to the Marquis of Shrewsbury, who won it for them, who's been such a talisman for them up top under Gareth Ainsworth. This is a team in Shrewsbury that have won back-to-back league games for the first time in 2 years, have notched here their only second away win all season, and who have, since Gareth Ainsworth was appointed, and remember how desperate they were before then, a record of 5 wins, 3 draws and 6 defeats. It's 1.29 points per game. It's the 14th best record in the league in that time. Let's not pretend they're suddenly a playoff level team, but they are making the most of the situation, and it's just great fun to watch another club that isn't Wycombe Wanderers buying into Ainsworth and what he's offering, and for it to be working quite this well. It adds to the rich tapestry of League One, George, and Cobblers, thankfully for them, had got 3 points on the Friday night away at Mansfield, another surprise win.
For the second season running, there's just so much evidence to suggest that teams should sack their managers, and it's kind of frustrating. Because, it's the same again with Northampton. I know that the John Brady situation is very, very different, but...
Is it evidence, or is it coincidence, or is it variance?
All of the inces, I'd say. Get Paul Ince in. I don't know, but this was another good performance from them. They missed a penalty in the first half at Mansfield, Sam Hoskins putting it wide. But it didn't matter too much because they took the leads in just after half-time. Cameron McGinn heading home from a corner. As you'd expect, Mansfield, despite their relative, they're very poor run of form at the moment, where they came through. It was weird. There was a spell where Mansfield had a really tough run of games ahead of them. And I knew a lot of Mansfield fans were really concerned, and they came through that spell pretty well. And it's now when they've had games where you'd probably anticipate that they would, they beat Bolton, they beat Stockport, they beat Peterborough, they beat Rotherham. Now on a run of games, starting with the 2-1 defeat against Wigan, but they've lost to Cambridge, Crawley, Shrewsbury and Northampton. I mean, those could well end up being the 4 relegated teams. It's not it's not crazy to think that they might be. Their season, their playoff potential has been extinguished very, very quickly. The frustration for Mansfield will be that they will feel like in Jordan Rhodes, they brought in a player who will finish your chances. And Jordan Rhodes had 2 massive opportunities to get a point for Mansfield, and he missed both of those. The best of which was a kind of free header, which he headed wide of the post. So frustration for them. But Kevin Nolan, after not necessarily the fast start he'd have wanted, to beat Huddersfield at home and then to go to Mansfield and beat them, 6 points in those 2 games is significant, especially because it is getting so tight down towards the bottom. And he's doing a good job of navigating them away from the bottom 4.
Yeah, it's not fireworks, is it? Although notice it was quite an attacking team on paper. Pinnock and Hoskins, the wing-backs, which is a bit of fun. But it is 12 points in their last 8 games. And maybe most importantly, they've conceded only 7 in that time, which is probably the right way to go about fending off these upstarts from below the dotted line. One of them is Burton, and they so nearly made it 3 home wins in a row. They were ahead through Ruman Burrell, or as he will henceforth be known on this pod, Beep Burrell, because he is rapid. And I am loving so much how, in an era where, let me rephrase this. There was a time, right, where every Saturday night, watching the Football League highlights show on the BBC, my main memory of that era is John Akinde running onto balls over the top and finishing 1-on-1 against the goalkeeper. Like that, for me, is the goal that defines a whole era of EFL football. In this era, very rare that a striker just runs onto a long ball and gets a 1-on-1. Just doesn't happen. Teams are better at the top of the pitch and probably a little smarter at the back, and keepers probably sweep a bit more than they used to. But Beep Burrell is making a real habit out of it. That was his 6th goal in 8 games. He's so quick. It's really exciting to watch. The sad thing is he streaked clear for a second time in the second half. Similar scenario, we just couldn't quite get the finish right. And you thought surely Burton would see it out and it would be a 3rd straight home win and Gary Bowyer would be getting them really flying. And then a Sammy Silvera cross for Albie Morgan, breaking Brewers' hearts, like me when I'm saying I'm thinking of going gluten-free. But still plenty of positives. Bowyer has got such a good handle on this team. He has very quickly built a very functioning Burton team. And I don't mean functioning as some sort of pejorative word. That's what they are. He's built a 3-5-2 system that's getting a front 2 that work well together, a back line that looks so much more solid than they did before, and a midfield that's giving them quite a lot of energy in the centre of the park and a little bit of goal threat as well. So really impressive, but not getting the win against Blackpool. Lincoln drawing 1-1 with Cambridge, another bottom 4 team, getting a good away point. Draper had put Lincoln ahead. And to be fair, Cambridge hadn't started the game that well. They hadn't offered much going forward until James Gibbons, the right wing back, that cheeky little monkey Gibbons, decides to go 8. Only 3 league goals in 12,000 minutes before this. He sort of dribbled as if he was going to go down to the byline and get a cross in. Instead, cuts back inside, left foot swinger, heavily deflected and into the corner. A really valuable point for Cambridge, just like the draw with Wycombe in their last league game. But they're looking at Burton and Shrewsbury in particular, thinking we're going to need to get a couple of wins in the next half a dozen games, or the air might come out of the balloon. Huddersfield 0, Wigan 0 was a match that happened.